What is up, guys? My name is Harris, and welcome back to the Habs Weekly Recap. That's right, the one place for your weekly Habs news. We're going to get right into our first topic, which is the signing of Ben Chiarot. Now, this is a defensive player who, in my opinion, could really improve the Habs blue line. He's most likely going to be paired up with Petrie, as you can see in the projected starting lineups, right here in the bottom right corner. I got to see a bit of Chiarot when he played in Winnipeg, when Montreal would play Winnipeg, and he seems to be quite a good player. So I'm really happy to have him with the Montreal Canadiens. He signs a 3-year, $3.5 million each year contract. That seems to be pretty good, especially for a left-handed defenseman, which from what I've seen and what I've heard are going to be quite a bit of money in this offseason. Next up, the Montreal Canadiens signed forward Nick Cousins. As you can see, he's projected to be in the bottom six, the fourth line to be exact, this coming season. I think Nick Cousins could potentially break out in Montreal. He played quite well in Arizona from what I recall watching of him, and I honestly think that the guy could be probably a 40-50 point scorer if the Habs can really get him going, which in my opinion, I think they really could. Nick Cousins has the chance to be a really good player with the Habs, and I think he will be a good player. Oh yeah, and he signed a 1-year, $1 million contract, so if he breaks out, we'll be owing the guy a bit of money. Next up, the Habs have signed Phil Varone at a 1-year, $700K league minimum contract. I gotta be honest, I've never heard of this guy or the next guy that they've signed. I honestly think this is just an AHL player that we signed, and it's only really announced because it's the affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens. So, Phil Verone, he'll most likely play a few games in the preseason. I don't think he'll be up too much unless we lose half of our top six, and the bottom half have to come up, and a bunch of AHL players have to come up. Phil Verone, if he does play, I hope he does good. And the Habs have also signed Riley Barber at a 1-year as well, league minimum $700K salary. I haven't seen Riley Barber at all in Philadelphia, or at least I don't recall seeing him in Montreal's games against Philadelphia. He seems to have a decent point total, so I'll give him a chance in Montreal. I'm hoping he does good. Will he? You'll only really be able to tell once the season begins, or preseason. Riley Barber, I hope he does good as well. And for the final signing that we're going to be talking about this episode, Keith Kincaid has signed a 1-year, $1.75 million contract with the Montreal Canadiens. I really don't like this contract, honestly. Kincaid, in my opinion, didn't play that well in Jersey. It might just been because Jersey overall had a terrible season, or it could have been he's genuinely bad. But I honestly don't like that we signed Kincaid. I would have much rather preferred we go after Curtis McElhaney, who's in Tampa right now, most likely going to be playing backup for Andrei Vasilevsky. And if he did want to play a backup, Montreal would have been the perfect place for him because he's great. He's a really great goaltender. Price goes down, he can come up and be a starter. If Price gets hurt, Kincaid's our starter, we're out of the playoffs. In my opinion, I don't like Kincaid being the backup. I would much rather have a Charlie Lindgren or even a Caden Primo if he's ready to play. Kincaid's just not a great signing, in my opinion, and he's easily the worst of these list of players that have signed with the Habs this week. And next up, it's time for the Alzner update, which is the segment of the week where I like to pick on Karl Alzner. He is unlikely to be traded, doubtful to be bought out. Is that the case this week as it was last week? No, because last week he was actually likely to be bought out or traded if we signed a left-handed defenseman. We signed Chiarot, and Alzner is still here. And the last big piece of news, we are going to be talking about the Sebastian Aho offer sheet. That's right. Though before we really get to the Aho offer sheet, we have to mention that from what I've been hearing, Braden Point was originally supposed to be in this position. him and Aho actually have the same agent, but Braden Point rejected an offer sheet from the Habs before they decided to target Sebastian Aho. They offered him $8.454 million for the next 5 years, with $21 million coming in the first season. It was pretty obvious from the minute it was announced, in my opinion, that Aho would be staying in Carolina. Carolina was obviously going to match it. I don't believe the whole theory that Bergevin and the one of the guys from Carolina, I can't remember his name, are good friends, and so Bergevin just did that to get Aho a lower contract. I don't believe that. That's bullshit in my opinion. But considering we only have about $11 million in cap right now, and we still have four players to sign, including Hudon, Lettinen, and Armia, who just took Bergevin to arbitration, who are having arbitration cases sometime soon, and we'll pretty much arguably have to sign them, even though we could probably let go of Hudon, in my opinion. With Aho, him re-signing in Carolina, with Carolina matching and re-signing him, it hurts the Habs a little bit. I mean, as a fan of both teams, of course, Habs number one, but as a fan of both teams, it does hurt knowing that he'll be a Hurricane for the next 5 years, but after those 5 years, he'll be an RFA again, and if the Habs are somewhat smart, they'll offer him another contract in RFA or another offer sheet, and potentially offer him maybe $10 million, depending on how much cap we have then. However, we might not need Aho in the next 5 years, because we are also possibly interested in offer sheeting Mitch Marner or Patrik Laine. I would personally go after Marner more. Marner could probably bring more points to the Habs that they really need. They really need the playmaker to get the goals going, and Marner is the perfect match for someone like a Domi, a Gallagher, arguably even a Drouin, who hasn't been good in Montreal. You put Marner with Drouin, Marner will get Drouin going, I think. Whether it's him just simply passing, or bringing all his might onto the ice and actually getting Drouin points. That would work out either way. Rather, he just simply has to, Drouin, pass, boom. Or he has to forcibly get Drouin on the ice himself. I don't like Jonathan Drouin. Trade him immediately, please. Thank you, Habs. Thank you very much. I will love you always for that. But anyways, Mitch Marner or Patrik Laine? I mean, yes, Laine does have more goals, but Marner is a near 100-point scorer, as he was this past season, excuse me. If the Habs were to offer sheet Marner, I really think that could be better for the Habs, because if Laine is still in the slump that he's been in the past season, Habs aren't getting anywhere. With Marner, in my opinion, they go at least into the playoffs. I would love to see Marner. If Laine does get out of the slump with the Habs, if they were to offer sheet him and Winnipeg doesn't match, I think if he does get out of the slump and he's back to the 40-50 goal scorer that we had the 2 seasons before, the past 2 seasons before this past season, that's a little confusing, I think the Habs could be fantastic if Laine is out of that slump. If he's not, then we're just going to drag Laine into the playoffs, most likely. However, if we do get Laine and or Marner, we may also be interested in trading for Kyle Turris or Nikita Gusev. I would prefer Nikita Gusev because he's, if I remember correctly from looking at their ages, Gusev is younger by a few years. I would like to see him as a Montreal Canadian. Kyle Turris would also be great. And probably arguably more likely, since he's most likely getting pushed out of their lineup with Wayne Simmons coming in, and I believe going down the middle. Turris is getting pushed out. However, with Gusev, Vegas really don't have any room for him with their cap. So if it takes swallowing David Clarkson's contract, putting him on LTIR, if it means getting a kid Gusev, I think it'd be worth it. We are also allegedly rumored to be part of Jake Gardiner talks, which, if he doesn't have any more back problems and he's good to go, Habs should go after him. You put Gardiner and Weber on the line, Chiarot, Petrie, and then you have Mete Juleson. I think that'd be great. You have Mete Juleson most likely on the third line unless some rookie defenseman is able to take Mete or Juleson's spot or Juleson's spot. Gardner, I think he could be a good fit in Montreal. If we go out there and we actually offer sheet, we get Laine, we trade for Turris and or Gusev, then we get Jake Gardner. That's great. In my opinion, Kyle Turris, what'll it take? I think it'll take Danault, maybe a small prospect, and a third if you get another prospect with Turris. Gardner, you just got to sign him because I believe he's a UFA. Of course, Gusev, you're going to have to trade up most likely a few picks and or prospect. As for Laine and or Marner, or Marner, because there's no way you sign both of them. 4 first-round picks. You almost have to give 4 first-round picks for either of those guys. It's worth it for the Leafs or the Jets to give up Marner and or Laine, because if the Habs end up tanking one year and they get a top 3 pick and it's the Leafs or the Jets, yeah, they're getting a pretty good player in that position most likely. So yeah, that's what I think about the Aho offer sheet. I actually didn't really give my thoughts, but I just used that to segue into other things. Aho offer sheet, I think it would have been great to have him as a Montreal Canadian. He's a Carolina Hurricane for the next 5 years at least. Carolina really wins on that one. They didn't get any firsts. If they had gotten at least a first for Aho, they would have been less likely to accept, in my opinion. But that's that. Aho is staying in Carolina. So that's going to do it, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, favorite, share, and everything, which includes, but is not limited to, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and everything else. This hand actually does move. I've been using this hand the whole video, but this hand actually also does move. Thank you for watching. My name is Harry Rice. Please comment your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to join the Puff Club. Subscribe to join the Puff Club today. My name is Harry Rice, and I am out. Peace.